Hello there and welcome to this course on getting started with Cloud AI. My name is Valentine and I'll be your instructor. In this course, we're going to start off learning about the learning objectives. Then later we'll get to learn about why and what actually Cloud AI is, as well as why we would want to learn about it. We'll also talk about generally which actually this workshop or this course entails, how we can also integrate with Cloud AI with Python. And after that, we'll get to now go into a practice session where we can be able to interact with the platform itself, as well as also use Python. Towards the very end, we'll just talk about the next steps, like what would we recommend when it comes to working with generally, once you've learned how to work with Cloud AI as well as Python, what would be the next thing to now look towards. So let's get started. By the end of today, we expected to have achieved these learning outcomes. So we should be able to explain the key capabilities and limitations of Cloud AI. We should also be able to demonstrate the ability to craft clear, specific, and well-structured prompts to effectively use Cloud AI, as well as just define the importance of verifying outputs from Cloud AI, including maybe cross-checking facts, evaluating the accuracy of generated content, etc. Something to note, and also which is important to just mention at this particular point in time, our focus on using Cloud AI will be on the technical side. So we'll be focusing majorly on how to use Cloud models, Cloud AI models with Python. We won't be focusing on using the platform itself from generally a general perspective. That would involve, if you're looking towards maybe just maybe prompt engineering, how to craft prompt engineering, how to craft prompts that effectively get what you want by simply using the already provided platform. That's without writing code. That's not really our focus. Our focus would be on the technical side, and the idea is that by the end of it all, you should be in a position to use now Cloud models and also Python to be able to craft applications that you might be looking towards creating in order to solve for a particular problem. So let's get started. Generally, when it comes to using Cloud AI, we could work with the tool that's usually available to the public, and that might involve, if I may share my screen, using this platform. It's on dark mode, but generally it has an interface like ChatGPT that you can be able to work with, and Cloud would allow you to, the Cloud AI platform would allow you to ask questions more of, such as how can I make, let's say, bread? You could ask questions just the way you would ask questions to a platform like ChatGPT. The only limitation is that Cloud AI normally has limits in terms of how many prompts you can ask it. So it's usually quite limiting. And if you're looking for a platform that does not give you that limitation quite easily, you can just head towards ChatGPT. However, our focus generally would be on the back-end side. So how do you integrate the technology at hand provided by the creators of Cloud AI, who are called Anthropic? How do you use it to also create solutions that would integrate with Python? Whether maybe you might have existing Python applications or you're looking towards that end, maybe you might want to leverage the advantage or the benefit that Cloud models usually would provide to the potential user. So that is something that is important to keep in mind, that our focus generally would be not really on the front end platform, but it will be generally on the back end platform. So Um, Generally, that process of using Cloud AI with Python would just involve integrating or writing Python code that makes requests to the models that have been developed by Anthropic, which would be the organization behind Cloud AI. The reasons why you would want to use the Cloud AI API, which they do provide and which gives us access to various models, would be you might want to integrate maybe clouds or just large language models capabilities to your application, and you would be looking maybe for an easier way of integration, or you might also be keeping in mind of the fact that you would want to use a platform that heavily talks about safety practices when it comes to AI. That's where a lot of, there are so many conversations around how Cloud AI or Anthropic releases its models that, they take into account of just safety practices. And there's this thing called constitutional AI, which you might want to look into and understand that is their sort of guide when it comes to releasing these models. So on other reasons that you may possibly want to go towards this approach would be maybe you might want to also integrate your applications with a model, a large language model that's able to also provide multilingual capabilities, or even just at the same time provide vision and image processing capabilities. Like, for example, you can give it a model, you can give it an image, and it gives you a description of what within that particular image. Some of these arguably could be found also. These are some also capabilities of other competitors of Anthropic, OpenAI as well as Meta, and you might think that, okay, maybe I may not necessarily want to learn about it, but it's sometimes a good skill to also just learn what's also in the market and to learn, okay, all right, I know how to create maybe an application with maybe OpenAI models, but what is in store with maybe Cloud AI models? What is in store with the models provided by Facebook, the open source models, Llama models? So sometimes you might just want to think around, understand what's happening, and understand actually what's happening within the space. And that could also be another reason for why you just want to also learn about how to integrate Cloud AI with Python. Use cases, just like any other large language model, you can use this platform for content generation applications, or question and answering systems or applications, or even just text summarization applications. When it comes to models, Cloud, generally, the organization behind Cloud API or the Cloud AI API is Anthropic, and it has released these three different models that you can use for both image analysis or just analyzing images, and they are Cloud Opus, which is usually at this particular point in time, that's the publication of this video, it's the most powerful, and it delivers state-of-the-art performance. So it's usually the one that is able to handle complex tasks. So if you're looking for a model that just takes time and analyzes and gets more accurate results, then Cloud 3 Opus is usually the to-go model. There is Sonnet that balances between speed as well as intelligence. So it's usually between, it's not as thorough as Opus, but it still does a good job. There's also Haiku, which is quite fast and it's quite compact, and it delivers responses, not necessarily the most accurate responses, but in most cases you might realize that it actually does a good job doing just basic tasks, and we'll use Haiku in this workshop a bit more. So those are the 3 different models that we'll get to work with in the course of this workshop. All right, so in terms of the steps that we would normally take in order to work with the Claude AI models, we would first of all need to sign up for a Claude AI account, which we've provided a link that would allow you to be able to do that in the description section of this video. Then you would need to obtain your API key to be able to also work with, to go this route. By the way, you would need to also verify your account. Once you've verified your account, then you would be in a position to use the API key. Yes, you can generate an API key, but if you do not have credits within your account, which initially when you sign up and you verify, you're given $5 credits. If you do not have those credits, you wouldn't be able to use the model itself. For this particular workshop, we've given credits for only the next 12 hours for those who are watching when we've published. Otherwise, you will just need to just go and look for your own API key and use that key in your learning journey. In also your notebook. So yeah, so once you've signed up, you need to install the Claude Python client, which will show. It's usually, we'll show you how to do that. It's usually called Anthropic. Just use pip to install that library. Then you import the necessary libraries in your Python script. And then you set up your API key. Then you now create what would send a request, which would be a client object. And you make now API calls and handle the responses that you get from the API. And generally that would be the steps which would be involved. And we are going to go through these particular steps. So this particular point, I'm going to ask you to visit the link. There are 2 links that we've shared. You can click on the first link that will take you to a page that looks like this. And this will allow you to be able to access the practice resource that we'll use for this workshop. Once you have accessed the resource, which will look like the sample one, but which I am going to display. So it will look like this. This is what we're going to be using to learn how to work with Claude AI models and Python. Once you have been able to get to this page, the next thing that you need to do, but by the way, if you're an Afterwork member, you just are going to get the practice notebook, not the sample. The practice notebook has extra challenges. For sample, the sample is just for people who just want to learn without necessarily going deeper. But for the practice notebook, then you can consider you have access to all the challenges and even other content that we have on our platform. So and also the solution notebook as well. So if you're an Afterwork member, you'll have access to the practice and solution notebook once you've logged in. But if you are just someone who wants to just go through the course, we can have a look at the sample notebook and use that. So once you have done that, the next thing that you need to do is to go to the other link. We've shared 2 links in the link that we've shared in the description. You need to click on that link and it should take you to another page where you need to sign up for an Anthropic account. And then it will, once you've signed up, you'll be taken to your console dashboard. At the very top, you'll see console.anthropic.com and you'll get to this page. Then you can click get API keys and then you can generate an API key and that's what you can be able to use. Yeah, you feel free also to pause this video if I'm a bit too fast. And once you've gotten to get to the point where we are at, then you can unpause the video. That's the beauty about streaming. You're able to pause the video whenever it comes to learning. So once you have done that, let's go back to our notebook. I will use the practice notebook instead. So the first thing that we need to do is to save a copy of this notebook in Drive. So we need to go to File, then save a copy in Drive. That will allow you to save the copy, this notebook to your Google Drive, and you can make changes to it, and you can refer to it in the near future. So file, save a copy in Drive. To open a new copy, you can close the old copy. Then once you've done that, click on connect on that new copy. To say copy of practice or sample notebook or practice notebook, and you can actually change the name at the very top. So we'll connect now our notebook to Google server so that we can be able to run our code. So once we've done that, the next thing that we need to do is to go through the prerequisites. Now, we mentioned that when it comes to working with the Cloud API or the cloud models, we need to first of all install the client library that will allow us to interact with those models. So we will install Anthropic Python SDK. It's just the library that we need. First of all, I need to open mine in, I need to open my notebook in playground mode. You don't need to do that. I don't want to make any changes. That's why I'm doing this. All right, so I'll connect quickly. Then once it has connected, you should see connected at the very top right. I will click on install. I can just ignore that. Then install Anthropic. That's the library that we're going to be using to interact with the models. Then once it has installed, we will then click on import. Click on the next cell. So we will also run the next cell. So let's wait for it to be done. Let's run that as well. Awesome. Then let me see if I can zoom in. Okay, it's on 75. The next thing that we need to do is to set up our API key. I've already provided this key. This key will be active for 12 hours before we remove it. But if you don't have access, or you visit this video or course a bit later, you can always consider just creating your own API key. And if they don't give you the 5 credits, you could always just top up. They require that you just have $5 in your account. You could always do that as well. So let me set up my API key, and then I will be ready to run. So just click on that cell to be able to set up your API key. And now we can work towards generally using Cloud as well as Python. All right, so one of the things that we need to do when it comes to interacting with cloud models is to now, make a request. And how do we make a request to that model? We would create this object, we've created the object over here, but we would now, as a result of that, work with that object, but use a model, a function called create, and pass the following parameters. We would pass the model parameter that will comprise of the model name. This model name, you can find it in the documentation for Cloud. So if I click on Anthropic console in my console, and I click on explore documentation, I can be able to go to the different models and explore which ones they are. So here are the latest API models. And if you also get to visit this video a bit later onwards, you can do the same thing and access the latest model and just copy the model that you want to interact with. For now, I have chosen Sonnet, but I'll define all of them later. So that's Sonnet. And also I set the maximum number of tokens. How many tokens, you can think of tokens as like words. How many words do you want the model to generate? We also set the temperature value to 0.0 to ensure that we have as minimal randomness, because a model, when you give it a prompt like how are you today, the prompt that if you ask it that question, it says it's doing fine today, and you ask it again tomorrow, the answer, it might be I am doing okay. So it will vary. So in order to ensure that you try as much as you can to have consistent responses by a model, then we can set this to 0. If you set it 0 to maybe 1, 0.5, then it would be a bit more random. The responses will be random. if this number is higher. It's usually between 0 and 1. So if it's 0.8, you'll have more randomness. Then we now define our messages, which will now get the messages parameter, which will get an object, which is just a list that contains dictionaries. So in this dictionary, we have a key and value pair. We have role and user. That's the first key value, content, and also the prompt that we want to give. But for content, sometimes we may not necessarily have a string or the value, as you can see, which is a string for the second key value pair. You could have also another dictionary that contains other configuration information, as we'll get to see. And then we, so this is how we, this is the request, this is how we are going to request our model to perform an action. And then once we have done that, if we run this, this code will run and the model will give us a response, which will be stored in message. But to extract the text from the model, model's response, we use content and we specify the first item in the response dot text, and that's how we're going to be able to get our model. So here we are going to ask it, Sonnet, how are you today? Then it tells us, I am doing well, thanks for asking. And you can save this response in a variable and then use that somewhere else in your application. All right, that's good so far. The next thing that we are going to do is to define 3 models so that we can reuse them easily, and also have the code that we have here in a function so that we can easily call them when we want. So we are going to define Opus, which is the most powerful, though it's the most expensive model of them all. Sonnet is usually a balanced model, and Haiku. So we are going to define them in different variables, and this will allow us to use a function. So whenever we want to use this particular, whenever we want to execute this code will be contained in a function. So whenever we want to execute this code, we will pass to the function the model that we want to use, and you'll see, which is what we are doing here. So technically, the code that you see here, the one that I've highlighted, is just the same as what you have here. It's only that we have removed comments and packaged it in a function. So we have def keyword to define the function. This is the model request, which is the name of the function, and the parameters model, which will be the name of the model that we want, and also the prompt that we want to give to the model. And we will get a response, which will be printed out, and we can display it as you'll see here. So we define our prompt, and then we pass that we want to use Sonnet and the prompts, and the prompt itself that we want to give to the model, and it gives us, I'm doing well, thanks for asking. So it's almost the same. As you can see, we define temperature 0 to 0, and you can see here we have almost actually the same answer. But if you change this maybe to 0.8, you should have a varying answer. So you can see that our response here has changed because we changed temperature to 0.0. Right. So moving on, so we can perform common text generation tasks. So here we have our function, and we are going to be just calling it as well as passing the model that we want. So let's learn how to perform common text generation tasks. So here, assuming that we have this text, which it's a prompt that contains the summarized text and also the prompt generally that we want. So summarize the following text. We give the text over here, and we use 3 delimiter characters. These are just double quotes, can be single quotes, to just be able to have this string well styled, and so that it can be readable rather than having just one long line. So prompt, it's what we have here. And then we pass, we call the function that we had here. And then we pass the model that we want to use and the prompt. So we want to summarize the following text, and we should be able to get an output that summarizes generally the text. So here's a summary. We can also extract some text. Maybe we might want to extract some text from some other content that we have. For here, we want to extract just email addresses in the following text, and then write them 1 per line. So yeah, we just follow the same format, call the function and pass the arguments, sonnet and prompt, and we are going to get an output, which is what we have here. We can also upload PDFs, but this involves using Python. So you would handle this using Python libraries or just Python code. So initially we would need to install a Python library that handles PDFs. So this Python library will read out, we will take the contents of the PDF and then join it together. And then we can use now the contents of what will be joined. We pass it also to the model, and the model will do analysis. So we import the PyPDF2 library for working with PDF files. And then we use the with statement to be able to read the file that we have. So this is the file. We can download this file and upload it to this section. So click on here. Then I'll just choose the file itself. You're not seeing my screen because I haven't allowed that yet. And then once it has uploaded, you should see it here. And you can now be able to refer to the name itself. So African Tales, and then you create a PDF reader object from just the PDF class that we've imported from PyPDF. Then get the number of pages, and that the number of pages we are going to use it to determine the content that we are going to extract from each page. And then here we're just joining the text from all the number of pages that we have. And then we store the text inside this variable, and we can print out the first 500 characters of that extracted text, which is what you're seeing here. By the way, you can also visit the link itself to be able to see what's happening there. You actually get to the PDF, and then we just write our prompt, summarize the following African story in 2 sentences. Then we concatenate that text with now our entire text, and then we call the model with the inputs that we want. So it will just summarize our text, and you can see what we have here. All right. More on, we can also fetch web page content, still using Python on that side. So we could use requests library for making HTTP requests, like telling a server to give it a document. So telling a server to give it a web page. So we will use, we'll import request as well as Beautiful Soup for just being able to extract contents from just XML as well as HTML documents, because those web pages are made up of HTML code as well as XML code in some other instances. So the code here, generally, what we have here, it's just Python code, web scraping code that gets, first of all, we get this web page from this particular location and we store it in response. And if that particular web page has been successfully retrieved, that's what we're going to run. The code here, that's what happens here. So if the response status code 200 just means we've successfully retrieved the web page, then we run this code over here, and soup will create a variable, which generally it will be just a Beautiful Soup object, and we define a parser, which is generally the approach that we want to use to go through the response that we've gotten. That's the text from the web page. And then we go through the document and find a particular section or div element within that web page that has this particular value. We get its content, which is stored there, and then we inside the contents, that particular fetched content, we find all paragraphs within that container, and then we retrieve the paragraphs, and then we combine all those paragraphs until we reach a certain limit. Here we've limited it to 5,000 because a Wikipedia page has tons. It could even go to 100,000 pages, but we've limited it to that. And that might impact, let's say, Colab resources, the resources that we get on this platform. So, and also if you put in a lot of images, a lot of work with a lot of characters, one would also be charged for the number of characters that you spend when you give in your prompt. So if you give a model a lot of a big prompt, then you would be charged as an end user. So models would actually charge you based on input content, which is a prompt, as well as the tokens that you also given. So you would also need to ensure that you reduce that. And yeah, here we're just combining the paragraphs and then storing them in this content variable. And then we combine now, we create our prompt. Please produce a concise summary of the following content, which is what we have here. Oops, I did not run this, so I need to run this, which gives us this content that we have retrieved from Wikipedia. Then we can be able to use our model to analyze that. All right, at this particular point, pause the video and then work on the challenges. All right, once you've worked on the challenges, as if you're an Afterwork member, you can verify using the solution notebook. Moving on, image analysis. So aside from just being able to analyze text, we can also analyze images, and all the Claude 3 models, or the models that we've mentioned, that's Opus, Sonnet, and Haiku, allow us to just also analyze images. So starting off, we'll just create a function that contains the code that we are going to use to make a request to the model. So this particular function will take the model that we want to use, the image that we want, the image type. So if we want to have an image, we need to tell the model the image type. So whether it's a JPEG, a PNG, or a GIF, we need to tell the model what that particular type of image is. We also need to give the model the image itself, but the image itself would need to be in another format that's called base64. So once we have our image as a JPEG, we would need to convert it to base64 and then pass that converted form to the model itself. And then we have a prompt that we would want to ask the model about that image. So, and here is just what we have in terms of what we are going to be requesting the model. So model, again, we would do the same. I think I had forgotten to change this, so you would need to change what is here. So instead of saying Sonnet, you can just change that to the model that you want. So we define the same parameters, only that here we had a dictionary. So this was our dictionary inside the list that's inside messages. And this dictionary had two key value pairs. There was the role and user and content, and also there was a prompt. So the prompt itself has been replaced with what you have here, which is another list with dictionaries. So inside we would have a first dictionary to describe the image that we would want to have the model analyze. So in that dictionary, we also have some other key value pairs. Type is the first type image, the image type that we would want to give this model an input, which is now the image, which we define here. We would also want to define the source of now that image. Like, the source would be just additional configuration information about the image. This image is of type of base64. The media type, it's, whether it's a JPEG, and also the converted base64 image data. And then again, a second dictionary that would need to define would be the text or the prompt that we would give to the model that would want to ask about the image for. So yeah, and let's define this function. We will import the base64 model that we'll use to convert the image from maybe JPEG or PNG to now a base64 format. Then let's now start analyzing our image. So assuming that we have this image in this URL, and this is the image type. Image type, it's not just JPEG. You need to write image/JPEG. Then we can convert the image. We would fetch actually this image from this location using the request library. And then we get its content and then convert it to base64 using the decode B6 using base64.b64 encode function. And we also define that we want to decode using this particular encoding format, which is UTF-8. Then we define the prompt that we want, and then we call the function. So here we want to use haiku, which is the model that we want to use, image media type, and image data, which is what we have here, and the prompt. So we should run this and we should see the outcome. And you can also just click on visit the link itself to see what is there as well. Just see what's happening in that image. So this is the image that we are analyzing. All right, this is a JPEG image because of the JPG at the very end. We can also analyze the PNG image. This is a PNG image. It's actually the same image, but now in the PNG format. The only thing that we need to do is have the image in a different, have the image as well as the media type updated. And then the same thing, like, we would ask the same things, set the same things and call the function with the same parameters aside from those. All right, we can also analyze a WebP image, same case here, same image. And we can also analyze a non-animated GIF image. And furthermore, we can also analyze charts. So assuming that we have this chart that we can find in this location, this is the chart. If we wanted to analyze it, we can ask in the model to analyze it for us. Like, give me an analysis of the following chart as well as recommendations. Just ensure that you adhere to just the approach that we had of image type, defining the image type, and having that image in that format. All right, and this is the recommendation. And also you can also maybe do some further analysis. Maybe if you wanted to identify the objects in an image, here we can say detect and identify objects in that following image. We can also count the number of objects, maybe in that image. Again, lots of things that we can do. And also generate maybe, maybe some content from the image. Like, give me a recipe in bullet point form for the bread that's in that particular image. So if you have some bread and you're not sure what it could be, but again, you have limitations. So you'd also need to take into account that there are limitations that come along with this. You might, there are many breads which could have the same sort of look. So yeah, you have to also consider that. And you could also just translate maybe some text found in a photo. All right, so that's it with this regard, with this section of image analysis. You can pause the video and then work on the challenges. If you're an Afterwork member, again, you can verify your solutions. All right, so that's it with regards to getting started with Claude and Python. You can use that code or the approach that we've provided, or even just enhance what we've talked about generally. But that should give you a good idea, or a good, it should set pace for what you can be able to create using Claude as well as Python. As part of the next steps, maybe you might want to decide to build an application using Claude as well as Python. And deploy it out there. Or you could alternatively think about how you can also use other equivalent tools provided by other organizations, maybe OpenAI, Vision, they call it GPT with Vision model. You could also use other tools provided by other organizations too. That's it. If you did like this video, be sure to, or this course, be sure to give this course a thumbs up. It just tells us that we are doing something that we should keep on continuing doing. And if we see that more of you actually like what we are doing, then we'll keep on continuing producing such courses. And if you'd want to be informed of when we post such future videos of such future courses, be sure to subscribe, and see you in the next course. And all the best in your learning journey and your career.